This video is brought to you by Nebula. On Friday, Iranians went to the polls to elect their legislature and the so-called Assembly of Experts. The result was never really in doubt, given the Ayatollahs have banned anyone apart from the most hardline loyalist candidates. But the appallingly low turnout and the promise of another few years of economic mismanagement from the supreme leader and his cronies put further pressure on Iran's currency, the Rial, which fell to an all-time low of 600,000 to the dollar on Saturday morning, before the Ayatollahs ordered exchange bureaus to stop publishing their rates. So in this video, we're going to have a look at Iran's ongoing currency crisis, why it got worse over the weekend, and why it's only going to get worse in the near future. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So, to understand Iran's currency crisis, you need to know a bit about Iran's exchange rate system. This story really begins in 2018, when then-President Trump withdrew from the JCPOA nuclear deal and imposed a series of financial and oil-related sanctions on Iran. The Iranian economy wasn't in great shape before that, and the Iranian currency, the Rial, had been declining basically ever since the 1979 revolution. But Trump's attack put renewed pressure on the currency, which had been trading at about 30,000 to the dollar since 2015. Originally, the Iranian government tried to maintain Iranian purchasing power by basically denying that the Rial was declining, keeping the official exchange rate at about 38,000 Rial to the dollar. Unsurprisingly, this didn't work. If anything, the policy probably had the opposite effect, because it just reduced confidence in the Rial, and the gap between the government's official rate of 38,000 Rial and the actual market rate offered by Iranian currency bureaus started widening. Even before Trump had officially withdrawn from the JCPOA, the market rate was about 55,000 Rial to the dollar, implying that the Rial was roughly 30% less valuable than the official exchange rate. In April 2018, the government tried to solve this problem by, quote, unifying the exchange rates, which basically involved devaluing the Rial's official rate to 42,000 to the dollar, and then making it illegal to sell it for anything less at currency exchanges. This didn't work either, because currency exchanges just stopped selling dollars altogether, and the fact that the Rial could no longer be converted into other currencies pushed it down further. By July, the market rate was about 80,000 Rial to the dollar, and from September onwards, it traded above 100,000. In a tacit admission that the official rate was irrelevant, in mid-2018, the government introduced a third exchange rate for certain exporters and importers, called the NEMA. Originally, the NEMA was only a little bit lower than the market rate, but the government refused to let the NEMA fall as fast as the market rate in 2022, when anti-regime protest put further pressure on the Rial. In theory, the NEMA should act as a tax on exporters, which the Iranian government would then use to buy essential imports, like food and medicines. But the process is beset by corruption. Iran's former chief banker even claimed recently that at least half of the difference was pocketed by intermediaries or importers with close links to the regime. Anyway, this means that Iran now has three exchange rates. The official rate of 42,000, which isn't really used for anything anymore, the NEMA, which is currently set at about 400,000 Rial, and the market rate offered in Iran's exchange bureaus, which best reflects the Rial's actual value. Unfortunately for the Ayatollahs, the Rial's market rate has continued to decline over the past few years, trading at roughly 500,000 Rial to the dollar at the beginning of this year. This is due to a variety of factors, including weak growth, suppressed hydrocarbon revenues, and chronic corruption problems within the Iranian state. But the basic dynamic is that the government can't afford all its spending promises, but is too unpopular to make significant cuts. So it tries to close the gap by printing money. As you'd expect, this stokes inflation, which has now been running above 40% for the past 5 years. This has put a massive squeeze on Iranian living standards, with 1/3 of Iranians now living below the poverty line. To make matters worse, in the past month or so, the Rial's decline has suddenly accelerated. On January the 29th, the day after US strikes against Iranian targets in the Middle East, the Rial plummeted 15% in a single day to 580,000 Rial to the dollar. As anxieties about a regional war in the Middle East receded, the Rial recovered to about 550,000 to the dollar in early February. But it's since fallen even further, reaching an all-time low of 602,000 Rial to the dollar in the Tehran markets on Saturday. This clearly sparked some anxiety with the Ayatollahs, who responded by ordering the currency exchanges to stop publishing currency rates, with state media blaming the decline on a combination of regional tensions and mysterious economic terrorists. The proximate cause of this decline is clearly Friday's elections for the Iranian legislature and the Assembly of Experts. For context, the Iranian legislature, technically known as the Islamic Consultative Assembly, has 290 members, of which 285 are directly elected every 4 years, while the Assembly of Experts, which is responsible for choosing a new supreme leader, has 88 members, elected every 8 years. For both elections, all candidates have to be approved by the Guardian Council, which is sort of like the Iranian executive and basically controlled by clerics loyal to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. While these elections used to actually be slightly democratic, with controlled competition between so-called moderates or reformists and hardliners, the Ayatollahs have responded to their waning popularity by basically banning anyone apart from their most loyal candidates from running. This is why turnout for Friday's election came in at an all-time low of approximately 41%, according to official statistics, and the true figure was probably even lower, given the regime has a history of inflating turnout figures to boost their legitimacy, and the fact that polling ahead of the election predicted a national turnout of just 28%. It's also worth saying that, after 10 hours of voting, turnout was only 27%, before the polls were unexpectedly kept open for an extra 2 hours. Anyway, the fact that the hardliners have won again, despite their appalling record of economic mismanagement, and the fact that turnout was so low, which suggests public antipathy towards the regime is as strong as ever, has made people even more pessimistic about Iran's economic and political future, hence the further decline in the Rial. Unfortunately for ordinary Iranians, things only look like they're going to get worse. The hardliners are still in power, and last month the Iranian state quietly admitted it needs to somehow raise tax revenues by literally 50% to balance the budget next year. This obviously isn't going to happen, which means ordinary Iranians are in for either another round of desperate money printing and the risk of further inflation, or crippling public service cuts to stuff like fuel subsidies. If you want to keep learning and expanding your knowledge, then I'd recommend you check out Wendover Productions' brilliant series, The Logistics of X. You likely know Wendover already, but in this series they dive deeper into the logistics and operations behind everything from search and rescue operations to ski resorts and coal mining. One episode I think you'd particularly enjoy is their latest, which gets into the logistics of weapons manufacturing, something that's key to a number of topics we discuss regularly in TLDR videos, and something that directly impacts wars and conflicts all around the world. It's a brilliantly researched and thorough series, and it's exclusively available on our streaming service Nebula. As you likely know, Nebula is the service we built with a bunch of our creator friends, and is the home to tons of smart educational content from all of your favourite creators. The best part is that by signing up, you not only get access to exclusive series like The Logistics of X, Modern Conflicts from Real Life Law, or China Actually from Polymatter, it also directly supports TLDR. That's because when you sign up, you contribute to the budgets of these big budget documentaries and help us grow and expand our ambitions. If you want to get more superb context and support TLDR, then if you sign up using the link below, you can support us directly and get Nebula for 40% off their annual plan. That's less than £2 a month. Thanks for your support and for backing Nebula.